Central Asia has achieved notable successes in recent decades. However, geosocial and geopolitical challenges still remain present as the region consists of the developing economies, said Peter Frankopan, the best-selling author of The Silk Roads, A New History of the World, in an exclusive interview to the New Times reporter Baljan Samigulina. The British historian and scholar visited Almaty recently, where he launched his latest book, Earth Transformed, an untold story. It will be available to the public in Kazakh. Professor at Oxford University and also a senior research fellow at Worcester College, Mr. Frankopan, said that Central Asia as a research topic now receives more scholarly attention.
A Silk Way exclusive with Peter Frankopan, the British bestseller author of historical books who challenged the narrative of Eurocentrism and shifted focus to Asia. I had a chance to talk to him recently as he released his book in Kazakh in Almaty. It's called Earth Transformed, an Untold Story, which is about how humanity has adapted to climate change over the centuries. He says it is a hot topic, vital to be discussed among researchers in our region.
I've just been giving a talk at the CAPS Unlock conference here in Almaty and talking about some research done by colleagues where there are about 13,000 academic papers published about Central Asia in the last 30 years, and only 30, roughly, mention climate change. It's such an important part of the world today, and yet even the topic of climate change is more or less not discussed by Central Asian scholars until very recently. That also is starting to change. That the way in which Central Asia has been, from a point of view of security and geopolitics, we're living in a different time. But things like climate and what that means for the world of tomorrow is a question that needs to be asked here in Kazakhstan.
Yet Peter Frankopan got the global attention for this book called Silk Road, A New History of the World, now translated into 45 languages and being in a list of bestsellers by New York Times. Powering his research is shifting eastwards. Critics call it an antidote to the Western-centered concept of history. Thus, it becomes a revelation to the readers with a focus of perception of world history from the West to the East. Far more from the history of the Silk Roads, the book destabilizes notions of where people come from and where they are headed next. His travels to Central Asia prompt a breezy analysis of how the world will be. Even though some critics suggest that his opinion about Central Asian region's rise was rather optimistic, he repeatedly says it has always had enormous historical meaning and this is not going to be changed.
Central Asia was a part of the world that didn't get written about very much. I didn't read much about it at school. But the more I started to learn about it, even when I was a teenage boy, the more it seemed not only was Silk Roads and the cities and the cultures interesting, but also extremely important. One of the things I write about in my work is that these places were always very important. It's just for the last 100 or 200 years, their significance was replaced by the rise of the West. But we're living in a different world today.
For Frankopan, these early trading routes formed the basis for understanding the geopolitics of our time. He describes the dramatic and profound changes that our world is undergoing right now.
In today's world, we're like a buffet in a restaurant where you can take the best ideas from everywhere. Opportunities to learn are fantastic. That's what makes me excited about being a professor, is that you don't just learn from your next door neighbor or people who live in your same street. You can learn from everywhere. And a lot of the problems we have in the world today are ones which are global problems. So the more we study each other and collaborate, then the better.
There are now Middle Corridor and Belt and Road Initiative, all echoes of the biggest connective project of golden ages of Silk Roads. Do you think they have a chance to succeed to restore the ancient Silk Road, or at least to get closer to it?
Well, sometimes people talk about the Silk Road like it's like a motorway. It's not a real thing. It's an abstract term. It's a label given to talk about connections in the past. And I think any initiative that can facilitate and incentivize is a good one. There's a purpose for it, and the initiatives are helpful because they give people a story about why they should work. And so I think that those kinds of things are really helpful, because otherwise we've become isolated from each other.
Aside from that, the book positively demonstrates the new connections emerging in today's world and explores Central Asia's perspective within the global mosaic.
When I first traveled to Central Asia 35 years ago, but the progress and the change has been huge, and there are lots of things that can still be improved, from civic activism, from human rights, from openness, from socioeconomic freedoms and better opportunities. But the progress has been pretty good, and if one thinks that things will be better, then I hope that Kazakhstan in 20, 30 years' time will be even happier, even nicer place to visit, filled with scientists, entrepreneurs who are solving problems about water, about crops, about soil. Those worlds can come, and I hope that they will come, because my soul feels like it's Kazakh. So, I'm hopeful for the future of your people, that when I keep coming to visit, people are as kind and as generous as they always have been when I've come there before.
Even though I'm holding this book in Russian right now, the historian says he would love it to be translated into Kazakh as well. You can see much more, including stories about Peter Frankopan's thoughts of today's and tomorrow's realities. The full interview is available on YouTube channel of Silkway TV.